All right, so thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about what Guam PTAC does. So let me just get the slides moving here. My name is Boris Hertzlet. I am the program manager for Guam PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Thanks for joining us in our first workshop of 2022. Guam PTAC, we provide counseling services, one-on-one counseling, as well as group workshops and webinars to assist local businesses that are going after government contracts. So if you are going after a federal government contract or a local Gov Guam contract, we can assist you. We do not assist with private sector contracts. So just strictly government contracts. Our focus and our funding is very narrow, limited to, focused down to one thing, government contracting. We are funded by a grant from the Department of Defense through the Defense Logistics Agency. The University of Guam hosts our program, so we have offices over at the School of Business in UOG, rooms 116 and 117. That would be on the left side of the building, down the left corridor. We have some sponsors for our program. The Bank of Guam gives us office space, so we have an office over at the Upper Tumon branch. You can see Francine if you want to get some government contract counseling. She's over there. And then Gita, 5th floor ITC building, gave us some office space. So you can see Frank, he's over at Gita, the Gita office. And then GTA provides our cell phones for the counselors and myself, as well as internet and phone service over at the Bank of Guam. So thank you very much, GTA. You can see some of our highlights here. We have over 600 active clients. Last fiscal year, those clients won over $100 million in contracts and subcontracts. And we've helped a bunch of clients get HubZone certified. So not only can we assist you with getting government contracts, we can also assist with federal small business certifications. So if you want to get, the federal government wants to award contracts to small businesses. They're always looking to get more small businesses involved. In fact, Joe Biden is pretty much on a mission to increase the goals for getting more small businesses involved. So that's a good thing. So there are certifications small businesses can go after, and the big one on Guam is the HubZone certification because it's a location-based certification, and all of Guam, all of the CNMI are HubZone. So as long as you have an office in one of those areas, and as long as your employees are all residing in a HubZone, or at least 35% of them are, it makes them easy. It makes it easier, a lot easier to get the HubZone certification than if you were living in the state somewhere and where the office might not be in a HubZone or your employees might not reside in a HubZone. So the other small business certifications we can help you with, there's a woman-owned small business certification. That used to be a self-certification, but now it's an official certification that started about a year ago. Then there's also the veteran-owned small business certification and the service-disabled veteran-owned small business certification. There is the 8A certification, which is for socially and economically disadvantaged business owners. And there is also a mentor protege program for small businesses where a small business can team up with a large business, form a mentor protege relationship, get an agreement approved by the SBA, and they can go after small business contracts, even though a large business is behind that small business. So tons of opportunity out here, tons of ways to get involved in federal contracting. These are all SBA programs, so they're one of our resource partners. There's also the Small Business Development Center, another one of our resource partners. So they help you with developing your business. That's something we do not do. Like I said, we strictly focus on government contracting. So if you want to start a business or expand your business or get some QuickBooks training, financial training, whatever it is related to business development, go see the folks over at the Small Business Development Center. They're great with that. They can help you with that. And also, if you're interested in all the pandemic money that was out there, all the grants and loans or loans that turn into grants if you use the money properly, go see them with that as well. We don't assist with those applications. And then the APTAC is there's the Association of PTACs. So every PTAC has a coverage area. Our coverage area is Guam. So if you have a business on Guam, you have an office on Guam, even if you're a stateside business, but you have an office on Guam, we can help you and get you in our system and provide assistance. Our association, though, is there for us to learn about all the new things that are happening with federal contracting, all the latest and greatest, as well as it comes in handy when we have a situation, usually there's some kind of problem with, let's say Sam is having a problem, or WAF, which is the Department of Defense payment system. We can go to our association and find out if anyone else is having the problem and find out how they resolve the problem. So that association comes in great for that. So not only do we, the types of government contracting assistance we provide start from the very beginning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about federal contracting. So if you want to, be a federal contractor or even a subcontractor, you need to get a DUNS number. That requirement is going away. It's supposed to go away sometime in April, but as of right now, it's still a requirement. So you need to get that DUNS number. And then you need to register your business in a database known as SAM, the System for Award Management. And that database does a whole bunch of other things too. So if you want to find opportunities, they're all listed in SAM as well. Wage determinations, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, those are all listed in SAM as well. So, registering your company, going after contracts, finding opportunities, that's all in SAM. When you find something, you want to put a bid together, you want to put a quote together, we can assist. We can't write your proposal for you, but we can, give you suggestions, tips, take this out, put this in, add this, remove this, things like that. And we obviously can't price your proposal for you either. So you got to do that on your own. And then win or lose, get a debrief. You are entitled to a debrief in the federal contracting system. However, you do need to ask for it, and there is a process for that. So we can help you with that. So start to finish of the entire procurement process, we're here to assist. All right. So today we're going to talk about wages. So let's get that started here. Wages are a pretty big factor in government contracting, right? In some contracts, especially in service type contracts, it can make up a majority of your contract cost as a vendor. So we're basically going to do now everything I say today. I am not an HR professional, and I think there are some HR professionals on the line or watching today. So please correct me if I'm wrong. You feel free to just unmute yourself and let me know if I've said something that's incorrect. But there are great organizations out there like SHRM that can help you if you have any questions related to wages and human resources in general. So we're going to take kind of an overview of the different laws and acts out there that relate to wages, especially the ones on government, federal government projects. And a lot of GovGuam projects, surprisingly, have fallen in line and are taking the federal prevailing wages. So we're going to talk about those as well. All right, so let's get started here. So there's basically 4 laws in the United States that set minimum wage. Most people are familiar with the Fair Labor's Standard Act. So that sets a national minimum wage, also deals with overtime hours and things like that, and applies to most employees in the country. Currently, the minimum wage, I believe, in the US is still $7.25. Although states can override that, they can increase it. They can't decrease it, but they can increase it. And a lot of states have, Guam has as well. But basically, the Fair Labor Standards Act is the law of the land for most employees. And we're going to go a little deeper in each of these laws as we go through this presentation here. The Walsh-Healy Public Contract Act, also known as the PCA, that covers manufacturing and supply contracts over $15,000. So if that's going on, if you have some kind of contract with the government that's over $15,000 and it deals with manufacturing and supply, the PCA basically will come into play. Let me just check the chat real quick. Yeah, the slide has changed. Are we having a problem with the slides? Anybody else having problems? Oh, okay, never mind. Okay. So we also have the SCA, also known as the McNamara-O'Hara Service Contract Act, and that's basically for service contracts over $2,500, and those rules come into play, wage rules come into play on that. And then the Davis-Bacon Act deals with construction contracts over $2,000. And those are basically the 3 things the government buys. They buy supplies, they buy services, and they buy construction. So there's 3 different sets of laws basically that deal with those wages that you pay. They're very, very similar though. Maybe the outlier is the Davis-Bacon Act, but the other ones are pretty similar, and we'll go through that here shortly. Also, to note, the Davis-Bacon Act, there's a little asterisk there because there's about 60 other acts known as the related acts, and they adopt Davis-Bacon rules. And these come into play. You'll see this usually, the times I see it the most is when GovGuam let's say DPW wants to build some roads or repair some roads or renovate some roads, resurface roads, whatever they want to do. And the money, the funding source is coming from a federal agency, maybe the Highway Department of Transportation, something like that. And so if that money source is coming from a related act, it might require that Davis-Bacon rules apply. So a lot of the Davis-Bacon Act and the rules that are associated with it depend on the money source. Where's that money coming from? And if it's coming from a source that relies on these related acts, then the rules will come into play. And you'll know because normally the solicitation or the IFB or the RFP, well, it's usually going to be an IFB on the Gov Guam side, will let you know if the Davis-Bacon rules apply or not. Let me just check the chat real quick. Okay, nope, nothing there. All right. So let's move on here. So we're going to go through each of these one by one here. So the Fair Labor Standards Act, and I put links here where you can check this out on the Department of Labor website. And you can just click those links. Everyone's going to get a copy of this presentation anyway. But the Department of Labor has a really good website, I think. There's so many fact sheets. There's so much information out there that sometimes it might be a little too much information. Sometimes you'll run into some old fact sheets that, and you got to kind of make sure it's the most up-to-date information. So, but they really do put a lot of information out there. But this came into play back in 1938, and it kind of set the 40-hour work week, set minimum wages, set time and a half for overtime. So that, the basic rules that deal with wages for most employees, affects employees. Now, this is not just for federal contractors or Gov Guam contractors. This is everywhere, private, federal, state, local. So like I said, in general, most employees are covered by the FLSA. And sets the federal minimum wage at $7.25. I believe Guam's is $9.25 right now. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is. I think that went into effect in September, maybe. And employees receive overtime, which is 1.5 times pay after 40 hours a week, unless categorized as exempt. So there are some categories that are exempt from the FLSA. And I believe that's coming up on the next slide here. Yep. So again, you can go and download this fact sheet 17A, and this will there's a link to it right here on the slide, and you can download it for yourself. And basically there are certain categories of work that are exempted from paying overtime unless, and the basic gist of these categories is they must have some sort of base salary to justify the not paying of the overtime, and they must have some qualifications as well. So for example, there's an executive exemption. So let's say someone is an executive in a company and that's their title. Well, that doesn't mean they're automatically exempt. The title doesn't matter. It's what they're actually doing. So not only do they have to get a certain amount per week in pay to be exempt from the overtime, because I guess the point here is you can't just say, oh, well, everyone's going to be on salary, so no one gets overtime. Well, it doesn't work that way. They have to have some duties as well. So, and for the executive, they must be managing the company. They got to be, or managing a department. They must be basically overseeing someone. And here it says at least 2 or more other full-time employees or their equivalent. And they must have the authority to hire or fire, right? So they need to have an authority in the company. You can't just say someone's on salary and they don't meet any of these qualifications. So again, there's exemptions for administrative folks. And there's more. I just listed 2 here, but if you download the PDF, there are more exemptions for computer personnel and other things. But again, they don't qualify just because you call them that. They qualify based on their meeting all of these following tests. So these bullet points here, like the first one for executive, there's 4 of them. You can't just meet 1 or 2 of them. You got to meet all 4 of these tests to have these employees exempt from overtime. So that's just a kind of a big note there. Just know that, so you don't get in trouble with not paying overtime. And we've had some situations where companies on Guam have gotten into trouble. So sorry, I keep clicking. Some people are still entering the webinar. So, all right, Fair Labor Standards Act again. There's some record keeping requirements. So just make sure these are basic, and I think most HR professionals know this already, and most of them are doing a really good job with this and keeping track of their. But here's basically a list of 14 things you got to be doing, and of course some information needs to be locked away. It shouldn't be for everybody to look at. So make sure you're taking care of that as well. And just know the basic gist here is you got to preserve these records for at least 3 years. So, all right. This is the poster. So FLSA, if you were in different states, obviously there were different posters. But basically, you need to have this poster needs to be posted at your place of work somewhere. This is the latest one I could find. If there is a new updated one that has the 925 up front and center, that would be great. I haven't seen that. I haven't found it on the Guam DOL website or anything like that. So if anyone has a copy of that, please send it to me and I'll make sure to update our records as well for the next time we do this presentation. But it needs to be posted in a place where workers can see it, a conspicuous place, right? And you know, it basically lets workers know that this is the minimum wage, and there needs to be accurate records kept. If you're the employer needs to keep accurate time records. And then also, it's interesting, the third paragraph there basically are wages to be paid. So wages for time worked is due 7 days after the pay period ending, right? So you can't pay people late. Basically, you can hold their wages for 7 days after the pay period's ended at the most. In general, there might be some exceptions to that, and I'm sure HR folks will know that. But what's interesting is the what if I section there, where it says, what if I was fired or terminated by my employer? Then your wages are due immediately upon termination. And I can say from experience, I was let go. I was fired from a job once, way long time ago, and I did not get my wages immediately upon termination. It took a few days actually. So could I have done something about it? I don't know. I didn't know at the time, but apparently that is the law. But if you quit or walk out or resign or abandon, then it's due on your next regular payday. Maybe there's exceptions to that. I'm not sure. But these are things that the employees need to know their rights. So, and then meal periods, work a period of 5 hours, you got to provide an unpaid, uninterrupted meal period of at least 30 minutes. So, let me check the chat, see if we got some more information in there. Oh, great, a poster, awesome. I am going to download that later. Thank you very much. All right, so let's talk a little about the Walsh-Healy Public Contracts Act. So this covers what we say manufacturing and supplies, right? So this establishes minimum wage, maximum hour work weeks, things like that, health and safety standards for contracts greater than $15,000 for manufacturing or supply materials to the federal government. Again, this kind of incorporates the FLSA minimum wage and overtime, of 1.5 times per your regular pay rate. There are some exemptions to the Walsh-Healy Public Contracts Act, or PCA, and basically those you can find those in 41 CFR. Just look that up, and because there's a whole bunch of them actually. But basically, if you're doing these kinds of jobs, supplying perishable items, certain agricultural products, transportation services, and supplies that are furnished outside the U.S., then the PCA might not apply to you in a different type of, maybe just the FLSA. But in general, or maybe it's going to be Service Contract Act or whatever it is. But there are exemptions, so you might want to look those up. We don't do a lot of the government or federal government on Guam spends most of its money on construction and services, not so much on supplies that I've seen. So again, there's a poster that people need to know, workers need to know about their rights. So, and it's kind of a shared poster, depending if it's SC or PCA, and the box will be checked, whichever is applies in your workplace, whatever, or wherever the project site. Actually, it's got to be at the job site. So. That's a great question. What's the definition of outside the U.S. for the PCA? Is Guam considered U.S. or not? I will get back to you on that. I will have to check that out. I am not sure, because sometimes they define the United States in a geographic sense, and they only include the 50 states, and sometimes they include the territory. So I'm not quite sure on the PCA. If anybody knows for sure, please reply in the chat. I'll be sure to share that information. But I'll find out, and I'll make sure when I email this out to everybody, if Guam is part of that or not. All right, let's talk about the Service Contract Act. So this was enacted back in 1966, and it removed wages as a bidding factor. So basically what was going on is Different states, different sets of labor could be paid differently. All right, so maybe states that had a lower economic base or wages were depressed in those states, you can basically get a better labor force or a cheaper labor force and win contracts. So after a while of doing that, the government kind of said, you know what, we need to remove wages as a bidding factor. Everyone needs to be paying similar wages so we can make bidding based on actual quality of the work and past performance and experience and things like that. And maybe new ideas, even innovation, which helps reduce costs. So you're trying to get all the wages on a level playing field here. So it applies to contractors and subcontractors performing on federally funded service contracts in excess of 2,500, which is pretty much all of them. Very few service contracts are under 2,500. And you got to pay your employees no less than the locally prevailing wages. And so these are the employees that are actually doing the work, right? And fringe benefits for corresponding work. So you can find all that information on sam.gov. Before they used to be posted on the Department of Labor website, then it moved to beta.sam, and now beta.sam is gone, so now it's just straight on sam.gov. So, and this is what the wage determination looks like, and I put a link up here where you can just click that link when you get this PDF that we're going to send you later today, and you can click that link and it'll take you straight to this wage determination. So this was last revised a couple months ago, October 2021, and basically lists for service contracts for Guam, if the contract is happening on Guam or Northern Marianas or Wake Island, these are the prevailing wages you should be paying. So now these are obviously going to change when we talk about our last slide down the road here, but what you see here, administrative support, accounting clerks, that's all. That's not all of it. There are tons and tons of different occupation codes and titles listed. So you can look at the wage determination and see where whatever category your employees are listed and what the wages you are supposed to be paying if it is a Service Contract Act contract. So not only do you need to pay certain wages or minimum wages, which are definitely much higher than the FLSA, and the federal minimum wage, which is still stuck at $7.25. You also need to pay benefits, and those increased recently as well. I think about 6 cents. I think it used to be $4.54, and now it's $4.60, up to 40 hours per week. So how did this health and welfare benefit work? Well, basically, this is something above and beyond their pay, an employee's pay. So let's say you have a janitorial services contract, and you have your employees that are actually doing the janitorial services. They're mopping the floors and emptying the trash and cleaning the bathrooms. So they need to be paid their prevailing wage, whatever it is listed in the prevailing wage document. But they also need to be paid this health and welfare benefit, which needs to be an extra $4.60 per hour. So you can do that as a whole separate, I want to say cash, not cash, right, but a whole separate line item on their paycheck. You can have their prevailing wage as their rate, and then you can have H&W as another rate of $4.60 per hour, and you're done with it. Or you can do things like provide benefits that add up to $4.60 per hour. So in this case, let's say you were providing medical dental insurance to an employee, and the company was paying $400 a month for that employee to have that medical insurance, and I'm not saying the company's deducting it from the employee's check, because if they were doing that, then the company's not paying for it. The employee's paying for it. So if this is above and beyond what you're deducting from the employee. So if the company's paying $400 a month, then you would times that by 12 months at $4,800 a year, divide that by number of hours worked in a year, and then you would get to your hourly benefit there. So that, $400 a month in health and medical dental insurance is roughly $2.31 extra an hour that you're paying that employee. And that would be part of their health and welfare. So if you're just going to offer that, then you'd have to still hit the $4.60. So you'd have to kick in another $2.29 some way, somehow, to get them up to that health and welfare minimum of $4.60. The other thing you can do maybe is doing a matching 401k. A lot of employers do that. So let's say you're matching $200 per pay period for an employee. Well, times 26 pay periods, that's 5,200, divide by the hours, that comes up to about $250 an hour. And so if you're doing both of those things, you would easily hit the health and welfare benefit. So there's all different kinds of things you can do. You can go, you also need to give, I don't know if I have that on the next slide or not, I don't. You also need to provide vacation days. So let's say the requirements on the SCA is you provide 10 annual vacation days, but your company provides, I don't know, 12 or 13 or 14. Well, those extra days can be, you can divide those up by the hours and get an hourly rate, and those can be added to the health and welfare. So you can do things like that. I got something popping in the chat here. What positions would need the health and welfare? Typically, it's for the people who are actually doing the work on the contract. So, for example, the question in the chat is, would an accounting clerk need to be paid the health and welfare? Well, if the contract is not an accounting contract, if it's like the janitorial services, then no, usually the accounting clerk would not need to be paid that wage. It's for the workers who are actually performing the service that is being provided. Now, yeah, so, okay. So those are some examples there you could do. So notice also, when you get a copy of this wage determination, if you just click that link and get a copy, you'll see that not only do you need to do the wages and the health and welfare, there's also might be some holidays or sick leave, annual leave that is just minimum needs to be provided. So you need to take those into account as well. So anything that goes above and beyond that would be part of this health and welfare benefit. Okay. So again, if you're part of the Service Contract Act, if you have a contract that's covered by that, you need to post this poster in an accessible place at the job site. I probably repeated that many times already. So, okay. We're kind of flying through here too, so maybe I need to slow down a little bit. All right, let's look at DavisBacon. Well, this will take a little longer. DavisBacon is a little more complicated. So the DavisBacon Act and related acts, basically, again, same kind of deal. It was enacted long time, wow, almost more than 90 years ago, to help with the low wage bidders, right? So again, the problem of bringing in a cheap labor force from another state into a more expensive state was causing unfair advantage for certain contractors. So, hey, let's cut that out. Let's remove wages from the equation, and let's just go on quality of work and past performance and experience and things like that. So any contractor, a subcontractor performing on a federally funded contract in excess of $2,000 for construction, which includes renovation, repairs, alterations, things like that, they need to normally follow DavisBacon Act rules. And you got to pay the people directly employed directly upon the site of the work. So again, kind of like the service contract, it's the people who are actually doing the work where they get the prevailing wages. Okay. Exception here is apprentices. That's interesting. Okay, so again, there is a separate prevailing wage for these kind of jobs. So again, you can go to the SAM. There's a link. I put you a link there. But there's actually 5 different documents you can download, 5 different prevailing wages, and you kind of have to look at the title of them. So this one was for building, heavy, highway, and residential construction. But there are other ones there. There's 4 other prevailing wages, and they have different titles. So it depends on the type of construction that is going on with the contract that requires DavisBacon wages. So, and these are brand new. Actually, these were published about a year ago. So there might be some new ones coming. Usually they update them once every year or so. So hopefully we'll get some new ones here. But as you can see, the wages are pretty good, right? I mean, higher than Service Contract Act wages in most cases, and because it's a different field, different type of jobs. And usually, construction, no knock on service people at all, but construction requires a little more training with certain things. You're building a building here usually. So the big unique thing with DavisBacon Act is their employees are paid weekly. So that catches some vendors and some contractors off guard. But DavisBacon Act and their certified payrolls that need to be submitted. Normally, subcontractors will submit them to their primes, and the primes will submit them to the government. And there is a form, and this is what it looks like. And again, you can download this straight from the Department of Labor website, and I posted a link there. But it's basically, just know the big thing, the big difference with DavisBacon and probably every other contract you've ever worked on is the wages are paid weekly. So, and there's a certified payroll you need to submit. And again, the DavisBacon Act, you gotta post a notice on your job site, and so your employees know, and you got to maintain the payroll records up to 3 years after the contract completion. So you got to keep those records for a while, just in case there's any questions. Because we've seen it. We've seen some federal cases out here where contractors were not paying their employees properly, and it takes time for the government to catch up and find out what's going on. So you do need to maintain those records. Okay. The other unique thing about DavisBacon is they have a voluntary survey, basically an online wage survey. So you can go here to Department of Labor again and complete the survey. It's voluntary. No, you're not forced to do this. You also, and I know they also send it out via mail, and I'm not sure if they're still doing that. I think they're still doing that. But you can go to this website and basically start answering some questions and let the government know what wages you're paying your employees. And this is kind of how they figure out what the next set of prevailing wages will be. It's based on the responses from the contractors in that area, in that locality. And so that's another thing I kind of need to stress. These prevailing wages are based on the locality. So a prevailing wage on Guam might be different than, and for sure it's going to be different than a prevailing wage in California or Florida or something like that. So I did have a vendor once who was coming here and wanted to do, I believe it was like dive work under maybe underwater ship repair and things like that, cleaning ships. And he had a whole set of divers, and he was wondering, what if he was going to follow prevailing wages on Guam. He didn't think he could get anybody to work here because all his guys are used to prevailing wages in California. And apparently the prevailing wage for that type of service on Guam is quite a bit less than it is for California. So, and I said, yeah, I know that's how it goes. It's based on the locality, the prevailing wages. But so surveys is a way that you can get involved with the DavisBacon Act and help set the future rates by replying and responding to these surveys. Notice this one doesn't expire till 2024. So. Okay, other ways the prevailing wages are determined. So on the surveys, review of company records, but a contracting office, they can request a wage determination as well. And this happens sometimes when it's maybe some type of new service that a contracting office, that a government agency is requesting. It usually happens in the tech field, some kind of new service. And they're not quite sure how to categorize that. The vendors aren't sure how to categorize the employees, so they'll ask the contracting agency, hey, what do we do here? And the contracting agency can say, hey, you know what, we need to make a determination here. What's going on? Where are we going to fit this, classify this person, and what wage are we going to do it? So they can request from the Department of Labor, and there's timelines involved with this. I forget what the timelines are, but the Department of Labor is supposed to get back to the contracting agency within a certain amount of time and let them know, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to call them, and this is what the wage is going to be. Contractors can do the same thing as well. A contractor can initiate a wage determination for a missing classification, and there are forms you can get from the GSA. They have a whole library of forms here, and basically, contractor can go straight to Wage and Hour Division of Department of Labor and say, hey, we want to bid on this contract, or maybe we even won this contract, but we used employees at this wage determination at this category, but it's not quite right. So here's our project, here's the description of our work, here's what we think the contractor or the employee should be paid, and here's the type of work that they're doing. And they can let Department of Labor decide what the wage classification should be. So you can go that route as well. All right. But how do you know, and I guess this is usually the big question, how can you make sure you're using the proper wages? How do you know which wages to use? Well, for federal contracting, the contracting agency is responsible for that. So they are supposed to furnish in their solicitations the actual wage determination. You shouldn't have to go to sam.gov and download it. They are supposed to be providing that. And so here's some screenshots of a rental bus services solicitation that was posted maybe a week or two ago, and it was due on January 4th, so just yesterday or 2 days ago. And basically you can see when solicitations are posted in SAM, they also have attachments. And so one of the attachments right there is known as wage. And if you click that PDF in SAM, it would open up to the wage determination that they're using for this contract. So if you are bidding on something, or you want to bid on something, and you notice the solicitation does not have the wage determination, you can, do a couple things. You can, I would email the contracting officer and just say, hey, where's the wage determination? Because sometimes they might be, I don't know, using an old one. And you might have to say, hey, that's not the right one. This is the newest one. This should supersede that, whatever it is, or they just forgot to do it. But everyone needs to be on the same page. That's the whole purpose of these rules here, is that wages does not become a factor, because we all should be paying the same minimum wages. So the tip here is read the solicitation, read all the attachments, because there's supposed to be one there that tells you the prevailing wages. The Gov Guam contracts as well. All right, so thanks, Janine, for pointing that out. So yeah, the threshold that I posted was from the Department of Labor. So okay, so this was for the exemptions to the paying overtime for your employees. They need to be in certain categories. They need to be making a minimum salary. And I think my slide had the 684 per week. And Janine saying for Guam, the labor laws are still following the old 455 per week. So that's good to know. I didn't know that. So thank you very much. Okay. Where was I here? Yeah, so read the solicitation, all the attachments, and like I said, the wage benefits, or I'm sorry, the prevailing wage document should be listed there in the solicitation. If not, ask the contracting officer. And if they're not responding, you can just go down, download the latest one. However, you just need to make sure that everybody is following that latest one. So hopefully the contracting officer will make sure to add an amendment or something like that has the correct wages. Okay. Come on, computer. Here we go. Okay, the big thing though, I think, was this executive order 14026, which is increasing the minimum wage for federal contractors. So I put a link here to the whitehouse.gov executive order area of their website, basically, which unfortunately it's not as detailed as I thought it would be. But Department of Labor, you can go, it has links to Department of Labor as well as the Federal Register where this was posted. So there is a 15-hour minimum wage that's going to come into effect January 30, 2022. And it's going to apply to federal contracts starting on or after January 30, 2022. It's going to flow down to subcontractors. The unique thing about this executive order, it's an index to inflation, so it will change probably every January, every year. And this does apply to work done in U.S. territories. Now, there was a previous executive order back in Obama's time, which has, every few years would be updated and their wage would go up, and it would say, federal contractors need to make a certain minimum wage. And that executive order did not apply on Guam, because at that time, they defined the United States as the 50 states and did not include the U.S. territories. However, when this executive order was mentioned, and I believe it was put out back in April of 2021, I don't believe the executive order specifically stated U.S. territories are covered, but when it went to the Federal Register and agencies and contractors and vendors were allowed to comment and put their 2 cents in and say what they think of these executive orders and what's happening with the minimum wage. Department of Labor put their big 2 cents in, and they said, well, we want this to apply to the territories, and they got it, and it happened. So this will apply to Guam. So basically, I would imagine that those prevailing wages you see for DavisBacon and Service Contract Act are going to change, because there were some on there, some positions on those contracts that were under $15 an hour. So you're going to see those have to go to at least $15 an hour. So this will be happening in a couple weeks. So that's probably the biggest takeaway here. So, and this does flow down to subcontractors. So that could be an issue for some small subcontractors. But again, it's going to apply to contracts, not your current contract, but ones starting on or after January 30, 2022. So that's probably a good thing right there for people who are maybe a year into a 3-year contract or something like that. So, or a month into a 6-month contract. So, okay, so that's the big thing with wages. And I think, yeah, like I said, we flew through this. I think that's the last slide. Let me see. Oh, no, where to get help. So yeah, go to the Department of Labor. They have a great website, like I said. You can also go to law.cornell.edu. They got a whole, you know, if you want to read the actual laws, 48 CFR 52.222, 41, they talk about service contract labor standards. That's for the Service Contract Act. And then the other one, the link above that is for the construction contracts, which are, like I said, the 2 big things that are happening with the spending, federal spending on Guam. It's usually construction and service. And then SHRM, I mean, SHRM, these are the professionals. This is what the human resource folks, that's what they do. And they should, and I believe there's something coming up. I believe there's some kind of webinar or an event coming up. I saw maybe in tandem with Small Business Development Center, I'm not sure, but related to, I forget now, but it had something to do with wages. But please, if you're not a member of SHRM, join SHRM, or at least attend some of their events, and you'll get some great information on how to make sure you're complying with all these different wage laws. All right, I am going to, here's our contact information. But you know what? I'm going to stop the share for a second and just show you a couple of the things that I downloaded. I didn't want to jump back and forth through the presentation, especially with quite a few people watching today. So let me share the screen. Let me show you. Okay, here's some PDFs that you can download. So this is the exemption for the overtime. So yeah, so this is the latest one. This one actually says $455 per week, but I think over here is where it said $684, yeah. So I think there was a time when it was $455, then it went up to $684, then there was maybe some kind of court case or something, and it stayed at went back to $455 for a while, but apparently on Guam it's still at the $455. So there's an executive exemption, there's an administrative exemption, professionals, computer employees. And so again, they can't be exempted just because you call them that. They need to have this base salary and as well have these other duties that they, these are their job duties. So all these tests must be met for them to be exempted from being paid overtime, outside sales, and different, all kinds of different things. So you can go through here and look at this document and find out what best works for you. Here's a 1-page guide. I can send everyone a copy of this. I don't think this came from Department of Labor. I think this came from a private company. It kind of gives you some common mistakes on DBA on construction projects. So when is a truck driver generally covered by DavisBacon, right? And so there was a question like who's covered, and this kind of tells you which classifications are exempt from prevailing wages. So typically employees whose work is not physical or manual in nature are not covered by prevailing wages. So they're assuming in the construction area, right? But yeah, so the prevailing wages are for the folks doing the work that's part of that contract. So the actual service or the construction. This is DavisBacon, so this is all construction. And then there's here's the actual payroll form, the certified payroll form for DavisBacon. So it's a pretty good form. It's pretty easy. It's pre-filled. I mean, you just click in the boxes and fill it out. Okay, I'm going to stop the share here. I'm going to show you the actual wage determination so you know what one looks like. And this is what you would download from SAM, and hopefully this will work. Let me share this. It's a notepad format. I don't know why. I wish it was like a PDF or something, but so if I scroll all the way up, and hopefully I don't make everyone dizzy. Like I said, this is where you see The actual wage determinations came into effect on October 20 of this past year, and there's all the positions listed. Now, obviously, on January 30, this is probably going to have to be updated because a lot of these will get overridden to $15 an hour minimum, right? Depending, obviously, on the type of contract and service. So, but let's go down here to the health and welfare, and there it is. There's your $4.60 per hour. This was if you were using this executive order, but that's executive order that did not apply on Guam. And there's the minimum of 2 weeks paid vacation after 1 year of service. And that's what that's what needs to be the minimum. You're giving your employees holidays, a minimum of 11 paid holidays per year. So if you're given 12 or 13, those extra ones can be used to calculate your health and welfare. And then there's some footnotes, and of course, there's always exemptions and kind of asterisks that apply to certain types of categories. So you just got to look through those, make sure you're not running afoul of any requirements. Okay, let me stop the share here. If there's anything else I wanted to share with you, it would be, where is it? Oh, let's go here. Let me share with you the actual DavisBacon survey, the online survey. And so here's the website, and it basically starts right into it. So you can just go down here and, all right, this is going to be a new wage determination. Click continue and just start going through the process. Put in your name, fields with an asterisk, and just start. And then I'm sure somewhere along the line, you're going to have to start talking about the positions and what kind of jobs they're doing and what they're classified as and the wages you're paying them, right? So, but again, this is a voluntary survey. And I think that probably makes it quite difficult to, I don't know how many companies are actually doing this voluntarily and actually filling these things out. So the participation level may be low, and maybe the wages are not as, prevailing as they should be. Obviously, I would imagine the larger companies, though, like the Black Constructions and the Hawaiian Rocks and the Cortex, are probably doing this, and maybe those wages are coming from them then, basically, because there might be, who knows though, there might be a subset of smaller companies paying higher wages, and they're just not getting reflected as much in the data. So, if you want to see prevailing wages get increased, then I think it would be best if more people, more companies, even the smaller companies, get involved and start doing this online survey. What else do we got here? And there's instructions here. So if you're worried about it, you can click that instructions link and keep that open as another tab and just easily go back and forth between the 2 tabs. All right, I'm gonna stop the share and I'm gonna open up the questions. Anybody have any questions? Any HR folks want to tidy up some of the things I was saying? No, everybody's quiet. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today then, and I will make sure to get an answer to that one question about, I think it's in the comments. So I will definitely have that, and I will make sure to answer that question and include it on the email I send out everyone later this afternoon. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Please join us next week as we discuss
the Buy American Act.
Buy American Act, which is quite complicated, but we'll go through all the rules related to the Buy American Act. And there's some new things going on with the Buy American Act as well. President Biden wants to make sure more rules are in place and American manufacturers are more protected. So there are some thresholds that he's considering raising. I don't think anything's gone into effect yet, but there's definitely ideas floating out there. So we'll talk about that, as well as all the exemptions. There are a ton of exemptions to the Buy American Act. So we'll talk about the exemptions and the thresholds that are involved with those exemptions. So again, that'll be next week, next Thursday, 10 o'clock. Please join us, register on our website, guamptac.com. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Everyone have a great rest of your day and Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks for joining us.